Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. In this video that you are going to watch is all about the story Mateo Falcone, which is being written by Prosper Marimi. Also in this video, I am going to showcase to all of you on how you are going to critique your paper or your story by using psychological criticism. So just sit back and relax. So, in critiquing a paper, the first thing you need to do is to introduce the story by having a little background about it. So, in the story Mateo Falcon, our introduction is this: Prosper Mermis Mateo Falcon, which is being published in the year 1892, originally subtitled as Les Mueres de Corse, or in English, it is The Ways of Corsica, chronicles the killing of a 10-year-old boy by his father. The story, Mermis First, is provocative in spite of the detached narrative voice of his unnamed narrator. This laconic, disconnected voice heightens the shock value of the event and at the same time demands the reader to interpret the story objectively. Mateo Falcon is a brief but complex story. It features at least 5 points of view and at least 4 ways of life. Mermis' themes include betrayal and honor, savagery and civilization, vendetta and law, and custom and morality. Most importantly, Mateo Falcon exemplifies the art of storytelling at its most concentrated and elusive. Most critics consider the story disturbing and unforgettable. The story will be analyzed using psychological criticism. At this point, we are going to introduce the criticism that is going to be used in critiquing this story. So, the criticism that we are going to use is the psychological criticism. Psychological criticism in literature refers to the way in which the work of a particular writer is analyzed through a psychological analysis. The author of the work or a character in his work. It helps the readers understand the motivations of the writer as well as the character. In other words, this criticism helps us to understand why the writer writes the way he does. How have these biographical circumstances affect his writing, and why do characters in the story behave in a particular way? This psychological approach, which reflects the effect of psychology on both literature and literary criticism, was mainly influenced by the work of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. The first proponent that I'm going to discuss is Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud put forward the theory that literary texts are a manifestation of the secret and conscious desires and anxieties of the author. Thus, evaluating the behavior of a character will help the reader to trace the childhood, family life, fixations, traumas, conflict. However, these facts are not directly expressed in the work. They are often expressed indirectly in the form of dreams, symbols, and images. Therefore, this criticism may sometimes provide the reader's clue to understand the symbols, actions, and settings that are otherwise difficult to understand. So, the second person who is proponent of this theory is Carl Jung. Carl Jung explored the link between literature and a concept called collective unconscious of the human race. This theory claims that all stories and symbols are based on models from mankind's past. Jung was the first to link the concept archetype to literature. However, extreme care has to be taken when using this criticism to evaluate a work because it can become reductive in nature. The person who analyzes this work should be careful so as not to project any personal psychological issues into the analysis. So move on forward, we are now in the analysis of the story. In this part, we are going to get some lines of the story and we are going to explain it based on the psychological criticism. So we provided the certain line of the story that we get from the Mateo Falcone. So just feel free to read it. So our explanation in this line is that this line shows Jeremy how he wants to show the similarities of Abraham and Isaac in the Old Testament. Isaac and Fortunato are both only sons of their parents. In the story, Fortunato stands as the hope of their family to continue their legacy since he's the only son of four siblings. In the biblical story, Abraham willing to sacrifice Isaac for God, but the catch is that instead of having Isaac as an offering, God let Abraham have the sheep as a substitute of Isaac. Since then, killing humans as a human sacrifice is prohibited in God's law. But in the story Mateo Falcone, Mateo killed his own son. So in this story, the sacrifice of Fortunato is considered as the obedience to the natural law in Corsica. Corsica is a territorial collectively of France and an island in the Mediterranean Sea. It lies 105 miles or 170 kilometers from the southern France and 56 miles or 90 kilometers from northwestern Italy. And it is separated from Sardinia by the 7-mile or 11-kilometer Strait of Bonifacio. Vendetta was a social code or mores that are required in Corsicans to kill someone who shamed the family honor. Between 1821 and 1852, no less than 4,300 murders were perpetrated in Corsica. So there's another line from the story that we get, and we do some psychological criticism by using this line. So our explanation goes like this. By this line of the story, it clearly shows the barbarous side of Mermy's nature. The character of his story indirectly shows the reader the other side of the characteristic he has. Mermy grew up in an artistic, cultured, and agnostic middle-class environment. He was apparently never baptized. This explains why the ending of the story led to the human sacrifice of his own beloved son. It was written in the Ten Commandments of God that we should not kill. But Mermy was perhaps not a believer in any orthodox. That explains why the character Mateo Falcone in his story brutally killed his own son in his own hands. Moving forward, we are now in our last part in psychological criticism, which is the conclusion. So our conclusion is that Mateo Falcone gives us a glimpse of how a father wants his son to follow his steps and continue his legacy. This certain theme is similar to the biography of Prosper Mermy, the author. The chain of events in the story reflects to the life events of the author. It was stand in the story that Mateo Falcone questioned his wife if Fortunato was really his son. This event reflects to the life of Meremy, for he lived alone, but had many affairs with married women. In conclusion, the story Mateo Falcone by Prosper Mermy is based on the life experiences of the author, from which certain events that happened during his lifetime gave him inspiration to write a complex story where his beliefs are reflected by the actions of the character in the story.